All right, welcome back to the Bronx Buzz. Now I have a smile on my face. That Rikers Island segment was not very smile deriving, but right now I'm going to introduce you to two great people. One of my favorite people in the Bronx is Susan Olson, who's the Director of Historical Services at Woodlawn Cemetery and Conservancy. Nice to have you with us, Susan.
Good to be here, Gary.
And he's got the drum roll. I want a drum roll to introduce one of the world's great saxophonists and clarinetists, and it's Victor Goines. And so maybe we'll start this way. Susan, why would Woodlawn Cemetery and Conservancy be in an interview with one of the world's great jazz players?
Well, let me tell you how all this started, Gary. Many years ago, we were awarded a grant from the History Channel for students to write biographies. So we went to the Lehman High School for American Studies. And I had just met Victor Goines after he had done a tribute to Illinois Jacquet, who's buried here. And I called him up and I said, do you think you can talk to students about writing biographies through music rather than through words? So Victor came to the high school, did a fantastic presentation. And then as time passed a little while longer, and the more we studied jazz here at Woodlawn, we realized that several of the people that Ellington wrote portrait pieces are buried here. Florence Mills, Bert Williams, and Coleman Hawkins. And so the idea came back again. Now, this is several years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago. And so I approached Victor again, who always brought Victor Goines and friends here to play. We've had mixed groups throughout the years. It's been delightful. And I said, Victor, do you think you could write the Woodlawn Suite, a series of biographies? Now, besides being a great musician and educator, Victor is a terrific composer. And I've attended several of the pieces he's done for Jazz at Lincoln Center. And they're real toe tappers. Many people are afraid of jazz because it's too inspirational. But when Victor Goines writes a song or writes a piece, it's something that you could follow and it's something that you remember. So the Woodlawn Conservancy asked him if he would compose the Woodlawn Suite. And that, of course, was pre-COVID, and then none of us could get together. So now we're ready to have everybody out to Woodlawn for the suite.
So Victor, thank you, first of all, for joining us. I know you're in Chicago right now, and we appreciate you taking a moment. When you are presented with a concept like write the Woodlawn Suite, how does that translate in your mind to what you ought to compose or create? Seems to me, I would just be walking around singing, "No, the Woodlawn Suite, the Woodlawn Suite," and I'm not getting anywhere. Tell me a little bit about what went into the creation of this that's going to be debuted. Let's just get it right. June 5th at Woodlawn Cemetery. Go ahead.
Right. Well, thanks for having me here and to speak about this. And I think the first thing that comes about is to understand the history of Woodlawn and so much is going on there, and as much as you can. So Susan is the perfect person for that because she knows all that is Woodlawn, literally. So my introduction to Woodlawn obviously comes through Duke Ellington, Illinois Jacquet, then goes through Jackie McLean and George Wein and so many other people. But then as you look further, you think about all of the other people that are there. Madam C.J. Walker, you have the Redcoats that are represented there. You have other Duke Ellington alums. You have the swing dancers, the Frankie Mann. You have the whole suffragist movement taking place there. You have the Latin Quarters. So you have Irving Berlin. You have Tin Pan Alley. So I'm kind of giving you some hints to all of the titles that are going on in this suite.
So you use those names and your knowledge of their music in your mind. As you said, this will be a gift, a way of recognizing that volume of great American music.
Yeah, because they represent so many different things, and their way of life, while it has a lot of similarities in it, it has a lot of differences in it. So you can exploit the similarities through jazz, but you can actually highlight their differences in the different avenues that they took along the way. You take Irving Berlin's music, it's obviously Tin Pan Alley, but at the same time, that music became a very, very important part of what we call jazz standards today. So all of those things can become a part of the music. If not in their original sense, I won't be using their music, but I can use different elements of it. I can use different what we call contrafacts. I can write things based upon their harmonic knowledge of it. Or, we have the whole the thing of the Latin part of it, then obviously we have a rhythmic component that's taking place, just like we're having a swing dance. It's going to be trying to swing as hard as possible.
Sounds like this was a labor of love for you.
I'm still loving labor.
Susan, we're going to do history for you and history also about Victor. How did Woodlawn Cemetery become the place for all these jazz musicians? If I recall previous conversations you and I have had, it was the fact that the Duke was buried here, and then at that point it exploded. Of course, Miles Davis. So you really are the historian. I don't want to impose any of my crazy ideas.
We actually have two jazz sections in the southwest corner of the cemetery where W.C. Handy is buried. That is one section. And of course, when Handy, who was one of the most famous people in the world, bought his lot at Woodlawn when his wife died, that's when people started, members of the Clef Club, a lot of the black musicians of the time period, started gathering around Handy. But internationally, the Jazz Corner that we celebrate is where Duke Ellington is buried. We only have two pre-planners in Woodlawn's history as far as jazz musicians. One is Duke Ellington, the other is Victor Goines. Jazz musicians are incredibly superstitious.
Oh, really?
They all want to be buried as close to Duke as possible.
Oh,
and that's the last request. And what's incredible about our Jazz Corner is none of them are New Yorkers. They just want to be buried together.
I recall Lionel, you could face Duke Ellington's grave and Lionel Hampton just to the left. And if I remember correctly, you told me that's why he's buried there. So Victor, just we're going to rewind the clock. When did somebody put that instrument? I guess it would be a saxophone or a clarinet in your hand, and you said, "Oh, I like this." At what point did you become a musician and then, of course, dedicate your life to it?
Right. Well, I started playing the clarinet at 8 years old, and it was my mother who put the instrument in my hand. But it wasn't so much for artistic musical terms. It was because I'm asthmatic, and she thought that playing a wind instrument would help me with my respiratory issues, and it did.
I have to applaud. I'm sorry. I think that's great, and what a great lesson it is for Bronx children who, of course, unfortunately lead the world in asthma.
Yeah. Well, it also says that you can overcome anything. You just got to put your mind to it, and you got to follow the lead of those people who you trust, which was my mother at that time.
Mm-hmm. How rare is it for you to create a piece like to be conscripted to say, hey, why don't you create the Woodlawn Suite? Was this a unique thing for you? Because otherwise I'm just assuming that you just compose and create your music. Or was this the kind of thing that you do all the time? Somebody said, hey, why don't you make a piece for us?
Well, I love doing it. I certainly don't do it as often as I would wish to do it.
Really?
One of the first pieces I had a chance to do was a commission through Jazz at Lincoln Center called The Jazz Age. It was for the Jazz Age, and the piece is called Untamed Elegance. And another one was a piece that I composed for Branford Marsalis. And I say a piece, these are both suites that I'm talking about. The suite for Branford Marsalis was called Crescent City. I had a lot of direction that I can make for that one to write about anything I wanted. The first one, Untamed Elegance, was specifically about the Jazz Age. So again, the historical component of it is always very important to me. Even as I'm from New Orleans, I did a lot of research on New Orleans and the traditions that took place way beyond my recall. I'm not really a historian, but I love the.
That's why we brought Susan into the room.
Susan is the historian, truly the historian. So that's how that came about.
So Susan, let's just make sure everybody knows. So it's June 5th at the Woodlawn Cemetery. Now, do you enter on Jerome Avenue or do you enter?
We recommend you come in on the Jerome Avenue. The gates close at 4:30 traditionally, but we're opening the gates at 4 o'clock for our concert goers. Bring your picnic. No alcohol, please, but we want you to come with your blanket, sit on the lawn. We will have our trolley here. We'll be taking folks to Jazz Corner prior to the concert. And then during the concert, have your snacks. And it starts at 5 p.m.
Wow. And Victor, is the Woodlawn Suite, is that all you're going to do? In other words, that's the whole thing? Or is that going to be a section of what you're planning to do?
No, it's going to be all of the Woodlawn Suite. It's going to be all new compositions.
Wow.
Musicians from various backgrounds. We have a very diverse orchestra. I didn't want it to look like any one organization that I've worked with.
How big an orchestra?
It's going to be an 18-piece group.
Oh, I was looking up some videos of you, and I saw you with little quartets, and I was like, well, that's just incredible. But this is really going to be exciting. Do you bring a conductor, or do you kind of run the show from your spot with your sax and clarinet?
Well, one thing I've learned as an educator is when you think you run something, you never do. So
Especially with talented musicians, right?
right, right. So the conductor of our jazz band is always the orchestra, is a former student of mine, in this case named Aaron Kimmel. But we'll all be playing together. And that's the thing about jazz music. It's a collaborative effort. So we'll all be very in tune with each other. And while the conductor is always great to have in front in the event of, needing to direct certain thing that's going on, we'll all be very informed about the music. We'll be well prepared.
How exciting. Susan, let's just have this in context. What else is going on at the Woodlawn Cemetery? Now, I know you have.
Well, right now we're preparing for Memorial Day.
Yes.
Yes. We had a fabulous Gilded Age tour. We've been watching that TV show, and everyone in the show is buried here at Woodlawn. So that's been really fun to do Gilded Age things. And of course, we're getting ready for the Summer Youth Employment Program. We'll have a group of young rising seniors and juniors from the Bronx out here working all summer long, which we're looking forward to them.
As you know, I was there. I've seen the graduations, which are just incredible. Woodlawn Cemetery and Conservancy, one of the most wonderful and important places in the Bronx. So, Director of Historical Services, Susan Olson, thank you for joining us. And Victor Goines, where I'm from, we say rock on. I don't know if we say that in the jazz world. But you listen, man, you are just great. And we just need, I'm hoping a lot of parents will bring their kids. The kids got to see this live jazz in the Bronx. Oh my goodness.
Now, Gary, you tell them to keep swinging. It's all
swinging.
about.
All right, there we go. Keep swinging.
That's jazz.
You said what the great CT said, keep on keeping on.
Keep on. Fair enough. Victor, thank you so much. We are looking forward to having you swing the Bronx Saturday, June 5th. And for more information, by the way, you go to woodlawn.org. Is that what we're doing?
We recommend you make your reservations through woodlawntours.org.
Woodlawn Tours, Tours, woodlawntours.org. We can put that on the screen. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gary. Good to see you.
Thank you.
That's why this is what makes the Bronx the most beautiful place in the world. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will do it for the Bronx Buzz. It was difficult in the first segment, but important, and obviously happy and important in our second segment. And we'll do more next week. Good night.